On June 25th, 1962, the United States Supreme Court decided that prayer in schools violated the First Amendment. By the end of this speech, you are going to see the need for prayers in our schools. Where did the idea of prayer being banned from schools come from? And is the lack of prayer hurting our schools? What do we do about it? Well, the idea of prayer being banned from our schools started by a prayer being enforced on the students. Teachers would use prayers to help get their thoughts put across for the students to understand. They would also say the Lord's Prayer, and as well as any prayer that the teacher asked them to pray. In New York, the Board of Education enforced a prayer on the students. The prayer read, "Almighty God, we acknowledge our dependence upon Thee, and we beg Thy blessings upon us, our parents, our teachers, and our country." Stephen Engel, a Jewish man from New York, and his wife came together with 7 other parents to sue the state of New York because of the violation praying had on the First Amendment. The First Amendment states that there's freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the right to petition. Freedom of religion is what we're going to look at, and it just simply means that you have the freedom to practice your religion of choice. Back to Stephen Engel, the group of parents lost the case to New York because the amendment states that it cannot be enforced on a person. The Supreme Court decides that government-forced prayers in schools were unconstitutional. 1 year later, 1963, the Supreme Court then banned Bible reading and allowed evolution to be taught in our schools. Ever since the 1960s, morals of the young people have gone down the drain. Homicide rate since the 1960s has increased drastically, as well as teen pregnancies and suicides. 15 years before 1963, pregnant girls ages 15 through 19 had been no more than 15 per thousand. But after 1963, pregnancies increased drastically, and divorce rates declined for 15 years before that, but then increased drastically after 1963. Unmarried people living together increased, single-parent families increased, even SAT scores declined for 18 years after that, after 1963. I'm not saying all of this is proving that prayers caused all of this, the lack of prayers in our schools caused all this, but what are the odds of all of this happening after 1963, after prayer was taken out of our schools? Focus on the Family has a day where they encourage students to take their Bible to school and to work as well. This is a way to encourage the students not to hide from their faith, as well as sharing their faith with their peers at school. This is just one way to help show people that we have freedom and the power to make our public schools better and bring God to our public schools. In closing, the reason we came to America in the first place was to find